Okay, hello. I forgot how much work tests Academy, so going to be playing this and vibing. Okay, so in game development, there are the hiring process typically involves. Oh, I already got someone in. Hello. Hiring process typically involves doing. They send you a work test to do, but to see if you can do what they need done, which is a side effect of most things not being standardized in terms of design, at least, as well as how do I phrase this? A system designer in one on one project will likely be doing a little bit different things than another. Different games and different game types have different needs. As such, send you a work test. See if you can do what specific things they need. There's been a lot of complaints from people predominantly outside the industry that are curious about why they don't get paid for that, which I kind of understand on some level, but isn't even really a consideration, honestly, as someone who works in that field. Because it certainly seems like, from an outside perspective, that you're just doing unpaid work. But, I mean, in an industry where everything costs so much as it is, I do not see that changing anytime soon. I will say that doing them is extremely beneficial. Both from a learning standpoint and from a kind of dipping your toes in standpoint. Like, if they give you a bunch of questions that you have no idea how to answer, you've got two things sitting in front of you. The first being you now have something to look into for later to improve your own skill set, and you've got a really good idea of, like, if you even enjoy the work that they would be asking you to do to begin with. So it's not entirely like you're not getting anything out of the equation. It also gives you a really good way to get a leg up on everyone else. The literal hundreds of other people you're competing with to get to a development position anyway. Because the resume and cover letter can only convey so much. Being able to, like, answer a handful of questions and in a way that they would like, let me rephrase that. Being able to answer questions and just prove up front you know your shit will get your leg in the door. That's what the work test is. It's an opportunity to do that. It doesn't guarantee anything. But even having great answers does not guarantee that you move on to the position. But it's a pretty good way to get your foot in the door. And it gives you material to talk about on following interviews. Which, for a lot of companies, is kind of the point to begin with. It's a little easier with what phrase this? I feel like it's a little easier with either. Actually, I don't know that it would be easier based on the discipline. I've done programming and design ones myself, and the programming ones are typically, for me anyway, have been a little standard fare, but still involve, like, programming in backspace. Design ones typically involve Uh, I'm not going to break any let's say what's completely in anything, but the part of the brain in which you do design is different than you would do in programming. So programming, you're usually building something. Design, you're usually just working on a problem internally. Just asking your thoughts on stuff. Like how you would do something. Both are exhausting, which is why I'm playing this. I feel like there is something intrinsically ironic about blasting a fire truck with water. Yeah, a lot of people do not like doing work tests because they can be time intensive, especially if you're having to do your current job on top of them. But the time span for these things are typically reasonable. And I like doing them, honestly. Like little puzzles. Brain exercise with stuff that I may not have even thought of previously. And honestly, to be completely honest, I've learned more from like doing and failing work tests than I did in like getting a degree in design. Which sounds really weird, but again, most people that teach design in a college setting don't have much industry experience themselves. Which is not like a slight on them, because, I mean, I was almost in the same boat, and I do enjoy teaching design. But it's kind of just the nature of the industry. You've got an entire class of people graduating with a degree, all wanting to get into the industry, and it's not at the graduating that there's only like maybe 15 jobs available. They're not all going to get in. It's not going to be anyone's fault when that happens. It's just the nature of how things go. On a related note, good luck getting an internship in game development. By which I mean, realistically, you will not. Any given listing out there right now for entry to mid-level, you will be competing with hundreds, if not thousands, of other people. And for an internship, where there only a few studios can even afford to have interns, that number goes up drastically. Which is why I honestly do not recommend getting into the games industry if you wanted to get into games. I predominantly recommend just doing it as a hobby. You'll probably have a lot more fun with it. The state of the industry right now, especially with the virus and such, is not particularly conducive to entry into the industry. It's kind of just knowing the right person at the right time and being in the right place at the right time and having the right skill set at the right time. But anyway. Thought has occurred to me that focusing on game development and design and analysis and so on probably makes my channel excruciatingly niche and unappealing to most people. Might defeat the purpose of why I'm messing around with this to start with. I don't know. This was never intended to be a career. I just don't have a personality for it. It's fun to play around with stuff. I feel like there is So I am extremely ADD, and every hobby I've ever had, I just get a wild hair for it and then just jump in and do. And I feel like that's useful in a sense. Because, like, I don't know how long I'm going to be doing this, but I would find the experience beneficial, even if it's just for fun. Because, like, I've always been terrible at just, like, speaking for long terms of time and, like, filling air. And I think this is getting me better at that.
Ulysses is an amazing name for a cat.
So,
How would you shorten it?
call him Liz? Maybe.
rules, fire's rules. Are we really doing early 90s reference in 2022?
Alright. I guess the question in my mind about this game is, when do I meet the cat?
Steps? Huh. Okay. Windows. Dude, I smell popcorn. It really makes me want to get some popcorn. Perfect. I believe how this works, how that effect works, is it probably looks at it has the stationary camera, and every time a specific percentage threshold is hit, it probably just snaps a picture of the environment. Because I believe all of these are around the same length. Let's check something. Yeah, while my guy would, if you like, oops. Watch this area by the windows. It gets lighter when he's over there. Right there. I am unsure why that is a thing. Alright, should do a house. Oh, it's a gingerbread house. Okay. Ooh. Everything's filthy. Excellent behavior. Okay. Actually, what was the narrative of this game? We don't. Humble confectioners. Living on our own deep in the woods of the national park, and there's absolutely nothing strange about that. Ah, back to Dipper. H&G, Hansel and Gretel. Uh-huh. That's what I did. People that do this kind of stuff for a living, like clean houses and stuff, even just like basic like maid services and stuff, I always wonder how clean their houses are. Because I can see them being spotless, and I can see them being an absolute dump at the same time. Explicitly because why would you want... Explicitly from the difficulty in like bringing their work home with it. Because like I feel like the last thing you'd want to do if you do this all day is to go home and do more of it. There we go. This is making my graphics card's fans kick on now? I'm interested in seeing what this is making my computer run at. 80? What did they do to this scene? Everything else has been like 70. But this one scene, I guess from the amount of objects in it. And also, it's an indie game in early development. Optimization's not usually its priority that early. I'd say a priority, more of a not really a possibility. I am curious what speedruns of this would look like. I believe that's the entire outside of the house. If this little spot we're looking at is a glitch right here. I think I'm looking through Void here, and it's doing... Maybe it's not. I don't know. I definitely feel like that's something that should not be there. Did I just see cat prints? And not a coffee. Okay. Hello. So there's like Floozy McGee. I have no idea what is happening with this narrative book. Something about Hansel and Gretel and making gingerbread. So I think they're married? That's just about everything. Like getting on top of this house. It's a strange roof choice with the character controller physics the way they are. Because you're just constantly sliding down. I mean, again, early access. And could be significantly worse. By all appearances, this game strikes me as something that somebody made as a prototype and just kind of put out there for fun, and then just got significantly more traction than they were anticipating. Which is kind of how some of these things happen. If you're not double A and up, you don't typically make a game and expect success. If you're making indie games, you pretty much don't expect anything at all. It's just market penetration as an indie developer is incredibly difficult, right? Every game you put out, there's going to be tens of thousands also trying to vie for attention. That's not even taking into consideration mobile, which is an order of magnitude harder, because the barrier of entry is shorter. Oh. What am I missing with this frame? Hands look nothing like Rocky McGee. Hands has a huge beard and woolly hair and defeated eyes. Okay. Rocky was young, clean-shaven, handsome with such spirit. I like that they have these little narrative moments like this. The design space for a game like this is kind of hard to work around because it's inherently basic. I see you quite like this game. Yeah, well, I quite like it to... If I'm exhausted and I just don't want to use brain cells at all, this is a very nice game for that. And I figured if I'm going to just chill, I might as well do it on stream. I just spent like 3 days working on a work test and my brain is fried. I get the feeling I'm about to run out of content for it, though. Until more updates come through. I'm not really sure what I want to stream next. But, yeah. This and Roller Coaster Tycoon are kind of my, I want to stream something but I don't want to think games. Might play some more Monster Hunter, but I really like Monster Hunter, but I tend to like burn through it quickly, if that makes sense. And then I get bored. And that is not at all the game's fault. I can see myself playing Rise more in a long-term sense, as opposed to World. Simply because I think, like, Rise is mechanically more accessible. Like, not even in a difficulty... Oh, I forgot I had this thing. Not even in a difficulty sense, just as a pick up and go without having to remember everything that I was doing sense. But I'm also getting kind of inherently worried about the kind of stuff what people would like to watch. Because as far as that goes, I've been all over the place. Can I just... Okay, okay. But yeah, I've had a good time with this. Significantly better than I was anticipating. I just got it to have something to pick apart. Because it's so unused to the games that I make. That I figured it might be fun. And now I just like it. About an hour or so, I'm probably going to go make some burgers. No, I never thought I would get into this, but I kind of enjoy cooking. Like, I never really had the patience for it, but with the amount of downtime I've had in the past 2.5 years, it's kind of been fun picking it up. Like, most of that's just kind of screwing around with stuff I have in the kitchen and just seeing what comes out of it. Like, on a whim, I was just like, what if I just put soy sauce and hamburger meat and fry it like a burger? And it was probably one of the better burgers I've ever made. Just work it into the power washer's kind of... Oh, is it? For telling me, I will bring that down some. Let me just see. Okay, let's have that running, and there we go. How's that? Does that sound better? Better or worse? I'll turn it down a little more. All right, let me know if that sounds better, and I'll just leave it at this. It's a little hard to like test. Try spraying the building. Yeah. Oh, like this. Okay, with the high end and such. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I didn't even consider that, but like the high end of like the high end noises from this might be just interacting with my voice in a weird way. But yeah, like I found out like to season hamburger properly, you have to like knead it into the meat. Rocky would never run from the law and hide out in a dank cottage for years claiming to be a baker unless he was completely desperate. Press X to doubt. I see the chimney is aesthetic and non-functional. But yeah, like chicken you can just season in a pan, like as you're doing it. Hamburger, I'm getting the understanding that if you just do that while it's in the pan, it'll just sweat it out. So it has to be like kneaded into the meat before you put it in the pan. So about a week ago, I was like, fuck it, I want to try this with soy sauce and ginger. And like, the meat was already a little dehydrated, just from how it was frozen. So I just like dumped soy sauce and ginger on it and kneaded it in. I thought I added too much, but it was probably the best burger I've made, so I'm gonna make them again today. And hope for the best. Okay, so there are parts of this chimney that are just green, I guess. So how have you been, Skaman? You been doing okay? Get down a little more. About there. Okay. And that would be a little faster. Hello, new viewer. But yeah, I like the little narrative beats that they have in here because like the design space is so simple that there's not much to add to it. Like they've done a good job with like the controls and the sound design in particular for wanting to make this relaxing and such. But like adding there's so many things that would normally be added to a game that like would get in the way of the design space of this. Like mechanical depth would probably make it less relaxing and work against it. Oops. Monster Hunter's got you occupied. Nice. I probably should play more soon, but I'm taking a little break from it. But yeah, little small narrative beats they have, like right now where it's like a Hansel and Gretel bank heist story for some reason. Um,
kind of just add character to the game in a way that's pleasant, which I like. It's like narrative doesn't always have to be like grand and epic and sprawling. It can just be like little bits of characterization to like flesh out the world slightly, and I think this game's doing that pretty well. Even if none of them ever show up on screen. Let's see. Alright, for whatever reason, like, with the spray nozzles and stuff, like, left is decreased size, right is increased size, and for whatever reason, it's just backwards to my muscle memory, and I have no explanation or understanding of how that might be. But it's been that way for the entire game. And I don't really think that's something that actually matters. I mean, like, it's not really timed or anything. Like, a little fumbling at the controls now and then doesn't really matter to the gameplay loop. I'm just finding it weird that I straight up cannot get used to it. Over here? It is over here. There we go. I believe an LOD mesh just glitched in the distance a little bit. It's flickering. This game, I never noticed it until right now, but the FOV on this is wild. Like this tree right here. Watch it widen as I get to the end of the screen. Wow. That's some fisheye shit. I am not entirely sure why that's the case. Let's just see what the FOV is. 70? Oh no, that made it worse. That's fine. I can't unsee it now that I see it, and I don't know how to get rid of it, but whatever. I got through this far and never noticed, so...
see what we got. Oh, over here. Okay. What did I do? Ladder. Sure. Hey, Spook. You finished your game, right? Do I remember seeing that you uploaded it already? Nice. September. Ah, I did. Nice. It's labeled as so. Nice. Congratulations on finishing a game. Any ideas for what you want to make next? Or are you taking a break from it? You want to remake it? One second. Okay. Since you were using an unstable version, I understand. Um, it You may not have to remake it from scratch. Jumping between Unity versions may cause a few things to break, but I don't think the functionality between the versions that you've been using will create too much of an issue. I don't think. You may just be able to just import it into the version you want to use and then just fix what breaks. And you were doing a rampage, but you heard something about Rise of Story? In what way? Something about fleshing out the characters or something? Wait, did I say that, or was that just something in general? Like, are you saying you heard something from the developer's standpoint? I'm fine from doing it from scratch since I want to make more challenging, reasonable level limit. Yeah, that's fine too. It also, if you know what you, if you have an idea of what you want to do, you can also rebuild your code base to support it better too, which I think will be beneficial. From your perspective, I may not have been about Rise, but just assume from context. Oh, a lot of ideas. Nice. Oh no, I was talking about the characters in this Skaman, because you have like there's characterization in this game from characters off screen, and I was just going to do that thing where I think back in Monster Hunter 4 story. Um, there's like characters in this that you never see off screen because the game is so simple from a design standpoint. I think it adds to the game without detracting from it, was what I was saying earlier. Because like if this game had like a any more mechanical depth than it already does, it would probably get in the way of its own identity of being just a chill experience. But like little snippets of like characters and stuff just popping in and just giving you random text and stories and a little bit of context on occasion, I think is a real nice way to flesh out the world without having it trip on over itself. I didn't think this game actually had characters. It does, but I mean, it's got like a the people in the areas that you're like. Okay, like this particular house has a character that's been talking about. It mentioned a few times that it's like, oh, we're totally not Hansel and Gretel, and we totally didn't rob a bank, and we're totally not these random characters. Because we're actually running a legitimate, like gingerbread house thing in for this house, and it's stuff like that where there's just like characters off screen that are just talking to you that don't really affect much, but are just there for flavor, and it's fun that they do it like that. Rise, I like how they characterize things through the animation. I think it gives the game a lot more life. Just like the cooking animations historically, I think does a lot for just setting a tone for the game. And just make in the tone from having like the goofy like monster reveals that are like really edgy but extremely campy. I think does a lot for it as well. It's in far as so far as like writing believable characters, I don't know that this game or that one would have that much of a space for it because neither of them are narrative focused. Uh, there is a point in which narrative can get in the way of what you're trying to do. I let my barbecue spit minigame. Yeah, like that. That is a really good use of characterization as well, just from the music and the so tasty thing. Yeah, like they're not like they're not like characters in a like a person or narrative sense, but it gives the game itself a character, or it characterizes the game and it adds to the tone in a way that's just like fun and goofy, and it contributes to the experience. I'll put it that way. It contributes to the experience nicely and adds to the tone and the flavor of the game. And I think that is synonymous with what this is what gives the game its charm and soul. Yes, exactly. Exactly. And I think that's what like the little characters popping in just to talk in this game. I think it works on similar lines. Because like, if it was just me and the power washer and like nothing else happening, just going through levels, the game would feel really lonely. But like, even if you never see the actual characters or the cat or anything, it's just hearing from them and just giving little weird character quips and stuff as you go just fleshes out the world more, I think. Along with flexing after eating, yeah, exactly. I feel like
I feel like mechanically having that one buff that one dango that like if you flex with that one emote while under the effects of that dango, it'll give you some character, it'll give you some damage buff. I feel like that exists along the same like the same reasoning and has absolutely nothing to do with mechanics because like that's just like so niche and so goofy and like no one's really going to use it professional like for its ability. They're going to use it for the meme, and I think that's fine. I think that's hilarious as well. I think just something like that can go can help give it can help with the soul and identity. There's another one in Old Gen for the kickback gesture. How so? Just looking for this last timber frame. One buff you one would buff you for basically just sitting down. Nice. That's right here. Okay. There we go. I love like little things like that aren't that difficult to make from a development standpoint. They're not always completely useful, but I do think they go towards like just minor contributions that'll just kind of like nudge a game's feel in a way that I like. Also, feline kickboxer that would turn your regular weak kick into something that sends your teammates flying. Nice. I love games that never take themselves too seriously, and it actually has a small amount of utility. Kick them off a cliff so they can, so a great sword can charge in midair and then stomp somebody maybe. Do the SUV. Ready for SUV. Look at the state of it. It's paralyzed teammate needs a high knockback attack to help him. Ah, yeah. Understandable. Another clip I saw, boot some hunters gathering on the ground before they get zapped by lightning. Nice. I can see how that would, I can see the utility in that, because it'd be a lot, from what I remember of the kicks, they're a lot faster than having to get your weapon out and then just, wait, that was when everybody had a kick and not just greatsword users, right? There's skill in Frontier called Martial Artist that lets you do a running drop kick, which also sends your teammates flying. I kind of wonder why they removed the kick. I guess they stopped removing, or I guess they stopped having the kick be on everyone when Palicos and stuff would just like remove you from those status effects themselves. Its main purpose is to buff the Tonfas, which has kick attacks, but it just has that side grade, which is amazing. Yeah. I looked a little bit into the Tonfas. They seemed like fun. From how they read, I was surprised they didn't keep them between versions. Although on the same note, I'm also surprised that Insect Glaive is still around, considering mounting's not a thing in this game. Considering that was pretty much how you would, like the default mounting weapon, from what I remember. Or the weapon existed to showcase mounting. I much prefer old mounting. I'm not sure where I stand on that, actually. I like being able to drive monsters around, but
if I'm honest, I never really did that much of either of them. The current Wyvern riding feels really intrusive. Yeah. I don't know that I would describe it personally as intrusive, but it definitely feels different. I can see the comparison of it going against the grain. On an unrelated note, I have to say I like that they don't base the level progression in this game based off of difficulty. Because like this is an extremely easy one that could have been done at the beginning of the game. So I am curious what they're doing to pace the levels, because there's definitely been a little bit of complexity in progression, but I also don't know that it needs to have like full-on difficulty for a game built around just relaxing. Since it's also built up by Silkbind now instead of only Ariel, so there's less control over actually doing it. That's fair. That's also why I never really do it, because I keep forgetting to use Silkbind attacks. But if I'm honest, I didn't really do that much mounting stuff either. I probably should have. Oh, great light. Window. Oh, this one little corner right here. Okay. There we go. Brake light, done. Yeah, I like how they're not structuring these based on difficulty. This is probably the easiest car I think I've done so far. It just feels like an actual job. Yeah, yeah. Penny farthing for $10? Oh, okay. Ah, yes, Velocipede. These things always look so damn dangerous to me. This is a very fancy bike, yeah. It's one of the original designs for bikes, if memory serves. Like back in the day, they didn't have like gears on bikes, so to make them work right, they had stuff like this, if memory serves. Because if they had like regular sized bike wheels, it would the amount of effort it would take to like pedal the bike would be intense. You'd have to be doing it a lot more than with the tires or with the tire size this size, I think, if memory serves. I may absolutely be full of shit on this because I'm paraphrasing something I learned like 5 years ago. Yeah, the penny farthings. I believe they were actually known as velocipedes as well. I have to Google that. Because that was absolutely the name of some type of bike. Yes, this is a velocipede. Okay. And the only reason I know what the only reason why I know that they're called this is because when I learned that's what they were called, I was wildly disappointed. Because a velocipede sounds much cooler than this thing. Like, it sounds like it'd be the name of something much cooler looking than this. Like a dinosaur centipede. thing or something. Instead of an ancient bike type that was really hard to drive and harder to turn. This game has an interesting space for it in terms of expansion. Because, like, in a lot of games, like Monster Hunter, there's a progression involved in both terms of difficulty and mechanically. So, like, getting to the next, if you're adding to it, there's such a basis of what the next thing would be. Especially in, like, Monster Hunter or something like that, because you're going to want more difficult monsters the more you progress, because that's what the progression is. But, like, a game like this, you just you can just make models and houses for it and throw it in it until it stops selling. There is no restrictions on what you can put in this game. And I find that fascinating. Imagine this game is mostly a lot of raycasting. I would imagine so, yeah. Like just having a fan raycast. Well, maybe not. You can do. I mean, it would still have a raycasting component, but like this, the actual fan, it might just be a collider that turns on and off when I hit the button. This could just be different shaped colliders. No, actually, no. They'd have to be raycast because you can do the crouch thing to do more, to clean more. So yeah, they'd have to be raycasts all the way down. It's usually raycast though. But even in like regular shooters, it's raycasts are, if they're not going for like mechanical difficulty, it's usually raycast. Your options in a shooter are raycast or like projectiles moving through space, and some of them kind of use it in both directions. Why was that hit? I was pressing left in the. I need to get a new controller. I'm pressing left and it's registering as up. Well, anyway. Yeah. Like you can. I think Apex is one of the only games I'm familiar with that's exclusively projectile based as a shooter, which is also part of why an ideal K to D, the kill to death ratio in that game is anything over 1, from what I understand. Metal and handlebars. But yeah. For something like this, you like the distinction between using a raycast and projectiles pretty much just what do you need the game to do. For something like Apex or Valorant or something, it's more a consideration of the design space. Because like Valorant would be an extremely different game if it didn't use raycasting. And I always found that interesting. Is like small little changes can completely change the feel of a game. I have absolutely no idea where this thing is. That's a panel. Okay. There we go. Battle with projectile bullets sounds like a nightmare. Yeah. It would slow it down for one thing. To my understanding, that game's, having only watched it, so take this with a grain of salt, but like the raycast It writes so beautifully to flog him to a museum. Okay. Um, the game rewards correct positioning and crosshair placement, and if you're doing that right, it does not give anyone really a chance to uh, respond. That's why, like, if you get shot in Valorant and you're watching someone, like, if you watch somebody play Valorant and you watch them get shot, they usually don't move. And I think that's telling of the gameplay loop. Because any other first-person shooter, if you're getting shot at all, the first thing on your mind is to move and get out of the way. Which I do not believe is even. I've never actually seen. I've only seen a little bit of it, but I haven't seen anybody even bother with it. So having bullet projectiles that take time to actually reach the target, I think would kind of drastically change it. It's due to tagging. What is tagging? It basically forces you to commit to gunfights unless you really want to leave. Oh, okay. Uh, I might be wrong about that. Oh, interesting. The game forces you to not move when you get hit. That's an interesting way to force it further. I like that. That's a nice mechanic. I can see how it would be completely frustrating though. Okay. The characterization. They built this treehouse because they're looking for the missing link. Like, look at how goofy this is. They built this thing to find Sasquatch. Like, that's the narrative arc of this particular house. That's wild. It's incredibly annoying when you're just trying to get somewhere and you get clipped by armed by the weak pistol. Okay, yeah. I can understand how that would be a completely negative experience, but it's definitely there for a reason. Yeah. I feel like, yeah, building on that, I think if projectiles had like actual physics and were actual projectiles instead of ray casting, yeah, that would absolutely conflict with that for one thing, because you'd be giving them enough time to be giving them enough space to react by just hearing the bullet or hearing you'd hear the shot, you'd have enough space to react, and then you'd get tagged and would not be able to. That would definitely be going against its own, be going against itself. No normal mapping on the rocks. It's just a flat texture. Interesting choice. I mean, I feel like this, considering the fact this barely even touches my graphics card, I feel like this is built to be accessible. Which is fine. Let me make sure it's not my graphics options. On the highest I can. Releasing shadows. Shadow resolution's huge for some reason, but okay. Launching mode. Witness effects. No, it just doesn't have normals. In fact, I don't think it has normals at all. Interesting. Because without it, any player could just take their knife out and outrun the bullets because tracking a moving opponent in Valorant is pretty bothersome. Uh, yeah, I can see how that would be a thing. I mean, it would also depend on how fast the bullets are coming out of the gun. But yeah, to have that not conflict, they'd have to be fast enough that it would, at that point you'd be faking raycasting anyway. Not only do you have to consider spray patterns, you now have to track the spray pattern in relation to the momentum of the other player. Yeah, that's also a really good point. This. Okay, that looked like it was square for a second. But no, it's got rounded corners. Not as much as needed. It's an acceptable amount of polygons, in my opinion. Is that clipping into the... It's not. Wrong button. Here, let me just hit every wrong button. Knock them all out of the way. Yeah, now that I look at it, I'm a little surprised they don't have normals in any capacity. Wait, do they have normals? There might be some of these. No? Okay. Normal? Okay, so you take an object 3D space. There's a number of things on this. Maybe it does have normals, just looking at the shadows. You got a texture map, which is your flat base. You've got, you used to have displacement maps, but now you just have normals. Normals is how light hitting it. Okay. A normal map is a texture that is slapped onto an object that would explain and visualize how light hits it and reflects off of it, if that makes sense. What it means in terms of something like this is it would, like the texture's still flat, but if you add a normal map to something like this, you would be able to simulate depth from the way that the lighting, from the way that that light, or the ambient light or whatever, would be bouncing off of it. You'd be able to have like small little nooks and crannies on this to visually represent depth without actually having to model it. It's really handy for like stuff that is like a where you need like a flat model, like a ground, for example, or if you have a Skyrim. Here we go. Skyrim. If you have like an age slider and that age slider makes it look like where it like adds wrinkles to your face or something like that, what you're doing is you're increasing the intensity of the normals on the face to reflect off of the light and make it look like there's deeper recesses in your face than there actually is on the model. I think that would be the best way to describe it. I am not an artist, so I am paraphrasing the best I can. So it's another texture layer, but for light, basically, yes. Wait, am I getting that and a specular map confused? Or are they the same thing at this point? No, I think the specular is for like, I think there's similarities between a specular map and a normal map, but I think the normal map just adds more for depth, I think. I have not touched 3D modeling in an intense capacity in like 8 years. It's been a while. To the extent that my workflow with it has been outdated. Like, when I was making models, like in a completely hobbyist capacity, the workflow back then was to take a model it out in Maya or 3ds Max or Blender or whatever, and then import it into ZBrush and then make your normals that way. And now I think it's the other way around. You sculpt it in ZBrush first and then do something and put it back in, or to get it into like Maya, I think. I think specular maps have more to do with influencing the color of light reflecting off of it as opposed to depth. I need to look back into this because it's been literal years. But anyway. Yeah, like, there's probably another layer. I would imagine that there's a texture on this. Like, what we're looking at is probably about 3 different textures slapped on top of here. That, like, this is just removing the opacity of. It is probably used as decals, I would imagine. Because, like, if we look at this, like, is this water? Okay, there's a weird lack of depth right here. The shadows are a little... Shadow implementation in this is a little basic. Not even as... Oh, I just noticed this is a camera because they're trying to catch Bigfoot. That's a nice little detail. Not basic in a negative light in any capacity, but basic as in it's just what it needed to be. Like this right here and this right here are 2 textures with an overlap. This is painted on top of this one, and there's like a transparency here where it blends into one from the other. So you got textures stacked on top of each other that way too. This might just be a crap ton of decals locked on top of it, or stepped on top of each other. That again, just raycasting sends out bursts to check and remove. I'm not fully confident on how they're doing that, but it should be close. Under the hood, this is probably a fairly straightforward game from an implementation standpoint. Or at least I would describe it as with a high probability of it being uncomplicated, which is not a criticism. It's like, you don't ever want to make anything more complicated in game development more complicated than it needs to be to begin with. And it's doing everything that it's set out to do. So, fewer moving parts in a game, the better off you are, or the better off. The fewer moving parts to get what you need done, the better off you are. The less of a headache it'll be. I didn't even notice the scaffolding. Oh, there's multiple scaffolding. One bigger than the other. Interesting. Probably because this is dirty. Understandable. But yeah, like, I'm not even sure how many different types of layers meshes even have anymore. Like in a triple for like AAA games in general, AA and up at least, I think it's about 4 or 5 per model, depending on how intense they're going with the lighting. Oh, maybe specularity was for reflectivity. Like, if you picture armor in Dark Souls, how it kind of like glistens a little bit in the light, I think that might be specular. They used to have diffuse maps, like in the mid to late 2000s, they were like normals on steroids, where you could take a flat plane and it would reflect light in such a way that it would like basically physically deform the mesh according to the texture that you put on it. But I haven't seen or heard tale of that in at least 10 years. And I don't know that it was ever really used that much to begin with, because you could definitely tell when it went overboard. I feel like models just got to the point where if they needed that depth of detail, they would just model it into the model. I should model something again. Come to think of it, I haven't done it in a year, and the process is really relaxing. Like making a 3D model. Well, it's a lot of fun too. Uh, Tedious in a lot of ways, especially the rigging part. With weight painting on bones and such. I do find that, like, conceptually making a model and then rigging it is kind of funny. Because, like, the process of, like, okay, you make the model, and then you shove bones inside the model, and then you rig it. You rig the weights to the different bones on the model, and, like, blending the influences how you make them move or bend, and like for an elbow or something, if you look at the outside of your elbow on a model, like the exact halfway point between it would be like half influenced by your inner arm bone and like half influenced by the outer arm bone. On a basic level, there's a lot of things they're doing for just simplifications of the animation process to make it look better. Like tools built into the rig at this point, which is incredibly handy considering that individual model vertices at this point can be millions. So I think it's millions. It's at least can be a few 100,000 for a player character. I wonder if people would be interested in like a Blender tutorial. Like, this is how you get started in 3D modeling. I think there's a lot of that already on YouTube that are really good, though. I don't know how much I would be able to, like, properly teach it as someone who is not an artist, though. Open Blender once managed to pan the camera and close it. Yeah. The problem with 3D modeling applications is the same problem with game engines, in that if you don't know what to look for and what you're doing, they just look like airplane cockpits. They got so much shit going on everywhere that you don't really know where to start. And it's like an inherent problem of complicated software design. Because, like, this is the best we can do with it. It's like a maze, yeah. It really is. It's a lot more manageable once you realize the 7 or 8 things you really need that you're going to be doing at any given moment, and that you can just ignore literally everything else about it. But, like, it can take hours to get to that realization. It's like in Blender, you've got like maybe 10 things you're doing at any given moment, and the entirety of everything else you can do in there is contextual that you may never actually need. I barely know what I'm doing with C#, but that's like 5% of the buttons. Yeah. I maintain the opinion that so long as you know if you know enough to do what you're needing to do in the moment, you're good to go with whatever you're doing, game development or otherwise. But yeah, Blender is made a bit more of a pain than Maya or Max in the sense that, like, if you hit the wrong button and don't realize it, you've turned on a setting for something, which drives me up a wall. But I will say, like, current Blender is significantly better than it used to be. Because, like, old Blender, like, 2007 Blender was wildly obtuse. Like, even to someone who knows how to model and, like, animate and stuff, it was, like, I started with Blender. Like, I technically started with a Maya that came with Unreal Tournament, but I started, like, doing it consistently with Blender, and, like, someone got me Max, 3ds Max, back in the day, and it was like a breath of fresh air. Like, it was so much of a friggin' relief just moving from Blender to anything else. But, like, right now, Blender's okay. It's still a little bit obtuse, but it's not nearly as bad as it used to be. And it's, like, it's... I still prefer Max and Maya, but I can't afford Max or Maya. And those get wildly expensive because they're almost exclusively for commercial use. But yeah, like, Blender's perfectly serviceable these days. It's a little bit of a pain in the ass to work with, but you kind of get used to it, and it does its job pretty well. You'll never make movies or anything with it, but in, like, in any development capacity, it's perfect. By which I mean it's free and has a lot of functionality. I wonder if people even care about tree houses anymore. I remember growing up, like, when I was little, there was, like, this mystique about, like, having a tree house. Like, everybody wanted them and nobody had them, but they were, like, really glorified as, like, the best thing a kid could have. And now, like, is that even still a thing? Do people even care? I don't know. Oh, I didn't finish the thought. Um, if you want to use, like, a 3D modeling program, basically the key stuff to look for, and you can ignore everything else, is just how to spawn primitives, how to manipulate their topography, and, like, how to merge vertices. If you can find that, you can get a good portion of work done without having to know anything else about the interface. Beyond that, I would defer to an actual artist, though.
I will say I am surprised that they made this in Unity and not Unreal. Explicitly from the standpoint that they had to, like, explicitly from the standpoint that, like, this was made using some sort of, like, first-person kit by the looks of it. And that's what Unreal is out the gate by default. Oh, one second. Oh, maybe not. But yeah, if you just open Unreal, it's like load a scene, it's going to assume that you're building something character-oriented with a gun. So I'm kind of surprised that they went with Unity instead of Unreal for that. But they just wanted it to have less of impact, performance impact. Or maybe this part was more feasible. Maybe they were just Unity developers in general. There's a million questions. There's not really a way to know without asking them. Oh, it's a Bigfoot. Okay. I've been mowing down the Bigfoot tracks like they were talking about. Didn't even notice. I didn't look at it before, but that's a really interesting way to display or to imply glass. Whatever they're doing with this shader here is interesting. Now the question is if that's just a flat texture or if it's actually bending the shape. Oh, it's bending a shape. Okay. Neat. Shaders in Unity I have only messed around with a little bit and have found them to be complete pains in the ass. But an interesting capacity. Or an interesting potential, I should say. I think shaders in Unity are more limited than Unreal, but I don't know enough to... I would not say I'm completely qualified to make that kind of assessment. I'll put it that way.
It's like this tiny bit on this window frame somewhere, and I don't know where it is. I'll try there. Or not. This thing can be a little bit of a pixel hunt sometimes. Not enough to criticize, but enough to be mentionable, I guess. Some of the vehicles in particular are a little, just a touch annoying from it. Um, You noticing frame rate hitches? No. No, I think I'm just bumping into terrain. Okay. Oh, I'm about to get Bigfoot facts by this person. Okay. Are they big and have feet? Drop me that Bigfoot lore. Impressive how they made the water leave a watermark on the wood. Yeah. Yeah, I think I've mentioned this previously, but like there's this nice little watermark on where you can like see it dripping down the wood. Here, see from here. Actually, it may just be on metal surfaces. You see it a little bit. Yeah, you see it right there. See how it drips down a little bit? Some people are way too good with 3D stuff. I'm jealous. It's, I mean, just like anything else, you just do it enough till you get good at it. I mean, there's also, I mean, there's been a few times where the visually hadn't made sense. But it's not a perfect solution, but I mean, in it, let me put it this way: in a game this straightforward, they focus down on what they could do visually to make it feel better, and I think just like stuff like this helps it a lot. And I think that's why they put in the effort to have it look like that. Do I agree? Yeah, I think the game's simple, but what they've done with the design space, they put in a lot of heart to it, which I can appreciate. I think that's just depending on how they did it, because I know it's not based on gravity. It's probably based on. If I'm honest, I don't think I could do 3D math off the top of my head under the best of circumstances. But also, what keeps flashing? What is doing that in the outline or out there? Um, yeah, I derailed myself. Um, I think they're just basing it on a projection of. Actually, it may just be this. Let me go find a weird angle to shoot this and see if it still adheres to the gravity. Because it's doing it fine right there. It'd be great if I could do it against that, but I don't think it's going to register because it's not a object with dirt on it. Like right here. Nope, not a surface that would do that too. Okay. The tire. Yeah. See it? Tire's a round object, so it's hard to determine. It's hard for the engine to determine what end is up. So you got it on this end that it runs down it correctly, but you have it over here. If you look really closely, and I don't know if it'll even show up in the stream, the water's running up on this side. Can you see that? It's all smoke and mirrors. Just about every part of game development is just smoke and mirrors. And like, there is no way a game in Unity, an indie game in Unity, is going to be able to completely and accurately, fully simulate water physics. Like, water physics is one of the hardest things to simulate in general, and it has been since game development began. You can fake it with like large bodies of water, like GTA in particular has always had some really good looking water, I think. Or at least GTA 5 does. I can't really speak for anything before that, come to think of it. But like, actually simulating water is like how do I describe this? I don't remember the word off the top of my head, but it's like a holy grail. There we go. It's like a holy grail for a lot of developers. Because the best you can do is fake it.
But yeah, like with context, doing this and having it do that shouldn't. I mean, I wouldn't call it easy, but it's. I would call it obtainable. Because like this right here, we've got like the basic water texture that like the outline, shall we say, that shows up and then slowly fades out. We've got a secondary one that's glossy that has the movement that sits on top of it in the space and then fades out first. And I think that should just be. Let me get a good look at it. It might just be a translating normals map. Oh, okay. So the game does have normals map. Normal mapping. Okay. I think. I need to find a metal. And I was gonna spray while I'm in the route. Interesting. No, it doesn't. Okay. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to determine if that is a normal map. I don't think it is, actually. Either that or if it is, it's using ambient lighting. Because there's not really a light source in this scene. There's a small one for the gun. You can see it like rotate. Or you can see the lighting shift when I move the gun. And there's some lighting for the trees, clearly. But like most of the scene isn't really that affected outside of that one spotlight, I believe. So as such, like right here in the shade, if it was using those, you wouldn't be able to see. It wouldn't be reflecting off of these because it'd be pointing in the wrong direction. I don't know. Maybe that's a normal map with using global illumination. Maybe it's just completely fake texture. It looks nice regardless. Let's see. I believe... I'm still on the fence about it, but I believe what this is doing, like this in general, the clean, is, I think it's just looking at a texture map, doing the raycast to see where the water hits, and of course, like what pressure and so on, if you're using soap and all that. And then I believe it's just changing the opacity of the specific sections of the texture it's hitting. I'm guessing. But that's how I would try to do something like this. Maybe that's why they don't have lighting in here, or as much lighting. Because I feel like that would lighting like that might get in the way of how this looks, or it might be too dependent on. It might mess with how having normals everywhere. Increasing the visual fidelity may be interfering with this effect that they've created, and they just chose the lesser of two evils, so to speak. That feels reasonable. It's not exactly easy to notice from the outside. Easy to speculate, hard to know.
feel like half of game development is just having enough experience with what you've done and an understanding of what other people have done to just get a desired expect, or just to have enough of a ballpark figure of how to do it and how to do something. If that makes sense. Like, my speculations on how this worked exclusively are based on my own experience in making stuff and also just screwing around in 3D modeling programs. Everything just comes down to experience and context, I guess, and information. Impression this level does not have the optimization that the previous ones do.
Which, I mean, it's early access indie game.
I'd be surprised if it did, or if it was perfectly optimized. Or it might just be maybe they did do some experience with lighting and like these effects, and maybe that's what's doing it. All I know is my graphics card is suddenly running 20 degrees hotter than it ever has in this game. Exclusively from this level. Not that that's bad for the game or my card, but it's still wild to see out of left field. Just getting some very light hitches. Very light frame rate issues, rather. Which mean absolutely nothing. And probably aren't even noticeable on the stream. I feel like optimization is a rabbit hole of its own design. Because, like, from a consumer standpoint, optimization just means runs good. Programmer standpoint, it's an ocean of tiny things that you do and kind of just hope for the best. I don't exactly, the things that you can do can depend on what the project is. Like, I would be absolutely surprised. It's probably just a loading volume thing. It'd probably just have the entire level loaded. And this is a bigger area. That's probably it on its own. But yeah, like, oops. Like, you're not going to be able to do normal tricks like object pooling in a game like this because there's nothing to pool. And do you render stuff that's off frame rate or off camera? But with a level as dense as it is, it'd be hard to manage that process. I've spent an hour on this level. I'm only a third of the way through. The size of this, and probably the texture map or the texture maps, and the size of those are probably what's causing it. And the lighting. I don't know that that many level had even shadows. Alright, another half hour. I'm gonna call the stream quits and go make some burgers. I'm getting hungry. I also need to actually mail out this work test, which I'm realizing I did not do. Speaking of burgers, as someone who's used gas grills, I would be terrified of turning this thing on if it's got this much shit all over it. Yeesh.
Lower strat. Back to pixel hunting. It's not even a complaint, but it's like my one frustration with this game is like you end up with pixel hunts. It's like, okay, where's the one thing it wants me to shoot at this to clear it? Okay, it's right there. Now where's the next one? This one. Maybe if I wiggle at it. My face is like 2 inches from the screen looking at where it wants me to shoot this. Or trying to find where it wants me to shoot this, rather.
I was stuck on the level geometry here too. Okay, I got one. There we go. Okay. I was getting real worried for a second there that I was not going to be able to actually get it. Alright. What am I missing on this? Ah. Let's see if it's doing the shader thing on this one too. No, actually. Okay. It's correctly running down this side. Oh, because that's probably two different objects. Okay. I was checking to see if it was going to do the tire thing again, where it would only run... Because it was a circular object, it would only do it correctly on one side. But no, it's doing it right on both. Let's see. There's a part of me that wants to listen to metal while playing this game, but I feel like that would be counter to what the game wants to do. Let's just play some hyper-aggressive metal / synthwave in the background of this intentionally relaxing, borderline ASMR game. The Zingling Flax sometimes called Bigfoot because of their one big foot, kind of like a bear's, the other one's small like a cat's. Incredible. I call Bigfoot because they have one big foot.
News at 11. They play hell trying to buy shoes. Not because of their feet, but because they are 7-foot-tall monsters. And they don't fit into a Big Lots.
I'm now imagining cryptids buying shoes at like a shoe carnival or something. A Jersey Devil just casually shopping at Target. Walmart Loch Ness Monster. The camera's clean. Although, wait, no, that makes sense. It wouldn't be left outside. Well, no, actually, if they're trying to catch a Sasquatch, it'd probably be left outside for a while. Okay. I feel like this would have been incredible to play on as a kid. This is a massive treehouse complex. What? I can just climb up trees? Oh, okay. I did not realize that these were all separate things. That's some wild water sound effect right there. Effective. That sloshing noise. It sounds like watery water. Yes, it does. As opposed to that solid sounding water, I suppose. Wait, no, that's just ice. Uh, this is a bit more fiddly than I prefer, but did I get all this? It's on the other side. Mm. It is a thing. The thing is I really want to go eat, but I don't want to have this to come back to. Yeah. It's probably up top there. There it is. Got it. Alright. Also, hey, can't stay for long, but I want to say hi. Also, please go eat. Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna go make burgers. Also, it's now 3 in the afternoon, and I have not eaten anything since breakfast, so yeah, I'll go eat. Yeah. Thanks for stopping by, everybody. I will power washing while eating. Well, I gotta go cook the burgers first. I'm making them from scratch. Oh. How many people just showed up at the end of this? I just saw the viewer count doubled. Um, 7. Yeesh. It's like, man, now I don't want to leave because I never get that many people in here. Of course, I got a sneaking suspicion I personally know half of them, so. Yeah, I'm gonna go eat. Thanks for stopping by. I'll. I don't know if I'm gonna stream anything else today. I just kind of did this to chill. Maybe most of them are bots. Oh no, there's like 30. There's like 20 people in the chat. Most of them are bots, but like I'm looking at like the 6 people. You don't know me. I do know you actually. I'd like to think I know you pretty well at this point. Um, and speaking of which, sick. Like I recommend this game. I don't. Okay. Um, Sick, I would give this a personal recommendation to you, just because it is just wildly chill and borderline ASMR. Play at your own risk. Yeah, like I bought this thing and started playing it on stream just to have something to deconstruct, and now I'm just unironically enjoying it. Oh yeah, this is late. Absolutely my thing. Yes. It's like 20 bucks on Steam. I feel like I'm probably at the end of the current content, but they keep adding more. Just zone out, clean some garbo. Exactly. What happened there? Oh, okay. But also went funny open world Pokemon. Yeah. Don't we all? The narrative implication of this one is like this treehouse was made by somebody with an intent of luring Bigfoot there, and they keep giving me wrong Bigfoot facts. Like they call them Bigfoot because they only have one Bigfoot, and the other one's like a catfoot. I love the weird characterization this game gets. But anyway, burgers. Yeah. So, Bigfoot's inside the house right now, I promise. The Bigfoot is calling from inside the house. Alright, yes, I'm gonna go eat. This has been fun. Thanks for coming, and I will talk to you later. See ya.